Okay. So as I said earlier, Common Sense Media and Common Sense Education have split in terms of how they provide resources, but you'll notice that all of this is still at commonsense.org. Then for the education one, /education, and then the digital citizenship curriculum and resources pop up right on the top. When you click on that, you'll see that you get to this screen with the 6 areas that we talked about at the outset, which are how they have divided up conversations and sort of a framework for thinking about digital citizenship. But I would encourage you, before you start delving in, to either sign in or sign up. You just connect it to your Google account, and the resources that are available as a result are about 100 times more than are available if you just browse the site without signing in. It's free. They encourage you to take material from the site and utilize it to modify it and copy it in any ways that are useful to you. There's no cost, and I have never felt any kind of negative impact for having signed up. So I highly recommend it. Much of what we're going to look at now requires that you get through that you sign up, but it's not a paywall. It's simply registering your account with them. Okay, so each of these areas is actually a filter for the lessons below. So if I click on relationships and communication, it's now going to limit the lessons that are shown to this area. The other ones are there. So if I go back and click on any of these, it'll change to those lessons. But we're looking at relationships and communication today. And then you can filter by grade level, so whichever one is appropriate. I would encourage you to look 1 grade below and 1 grade above your grade as well, because you'll find that based on sort of the composition of your particular classroom, some lessons are more or less appropriate. So I'm going to look at 6, 7, and 8, which are 3 of the grades in my middle school. And you'll find that each of these lessons is comprised of a pretty similar series of components. So if I look at this chatting safely online, the first thing we see is that video that I referenced earlier, the student voices video, teen voices. Then we have the tagline and the sort of visual there. And as you work your way down, you'll see learning objectives, key vocabulary, and this is the case for all of these lessons. The lesson plan for a full period, usually either 45 or 50 minutes. The vast majority of these lessons have a 15-minute version or a 10-minute version for a quick dive into the subject matter. They'll tell you what materials you need. They have lesson slides, which, as I said, they welcome you to copy and use. They have very simple ways to push them out through Google Classroom, and they offer the advice to kind of mix up how you present it. So they give you PDFs and handouts. They give you printed and digital quizzes. So they want you to really think about different modalities to engage in the conversation. And then every single lesson has this resource to take home. And as I said at the top of the hour, the value of, I cannot overestimate to you, the right word, cannot emphasize enough, there we go, the value of engaging families in these conversations and wrapping around to include parents. They feel supported. They are astounded by what happens and the similarities between their experiences when they talk to one another. And you get this very transparent, consistent message going back and forth between school and home about these issues that arise from digital citizenship. And I've had parents crying and laughing and, so delighted. We've had sessions with kids and without kids, and more like support groups, and others are skill-based. But anything you can do to engage those families is invaluable. And every one of the lessons, every one of the units and the focal points has these take-home resources connected. If I look at a particular lesson, it often starts with a warm-up, evaluation of some fact or like an analysis of something that offers an opportunity for discussion once you've looked at one versus the other. Then an analysis of a particular document or video or fact pattern for students to discuss, and then some kind of exit ticket or wrap up. And here it is as a PDF, as I mentioned, if you want to change up your modalities. And then many of the lessons, I don't know what percentage, but a huge number, offer additional resources in the tab. And these will frequently take you out of Common Sense Education's resources to a trusted partner, and offer other tools, other gamification resources, whether it's for parents, families, or students, sorry, parents, teachers, or students, but they will curate for you a really wonderful collection of external supports for these conversations. If we go back, the 8th grade lesson is about sexting relationships. And I've had a lot of people say to me, like, that seems really early. It is not too early, let me tell you. I am horrified / astounded / saddened by how early the exchange of unbelievably explicit information is happening. And if for no other reason other than sort of a moral compass, we know that exchanging child pornography is a federal crime. So having that conversation, this is one of the areas where I don't hesitate to scare my students. And I'm like, this is black letter, do not engage material. And I don't mind bringing in my resource officer and saying, like, here's the consequences of doing this. It is a scared straight moment that is potentially really fruitful. Although in general, as I said, not my approach to teaching this. I didn't mention there is a wonderful partnership between Nearpod and Common Sense Education. I'm not as familiar with learning.com, although I've heard raves about it. I'm just not personally familiar. Nearpod's format, which is a methodology for sharing Google Slides and sort of making them interactive and gamifying them and creating materials that are supporting or related to slides that you're presenting. First of all, it's a terrific tool just for regular classrooms. It is a game changer, if you're not familiar with it, for distance learning. But they've set everything up to mesh the Common Sense with the Nearpod platform, with learning.com, and with Google Classroom. And they've done all the work for you. And I feel like I need to put some kind of gigantic blue ribbon on their home office, because the resources they expend, the time, the thoughtfulness with which these materials have been curated and collected and shared is just mind-blowing. And the deeper you dig into what they have, the more you find. And I can't say enough about how impressed I've been, and my colleagues as well, with this, the breadth of the resources and the authenticity and the thoughtfulness about connecting it to the right grade levels. So I really encourage you to dig in and see what else is here. So if I go into this particular sexting relationships tab, lessons, here's the video I mentioned earlier. The video is also always embedded in the slides. So if you click on the lesson slides, it opens them up in Drive. And you'll see that the video is usually 5 or 6 slides in with these questions to consider, right? You'll see that there is this is the red flag feeling exercise. They give you, again, very specific skills to develop, frameworks to use. So for those of you for whom this sounds really overwhelming, or you're like, oh, how do I teach these skills? They're giving you really great language and lenses and questions and discussion starters that do the work for you. And if this is something that's uncomfortable to you, I will say you can literally read the script. I'll show you where it is in a minute. But there's no reason, no excuse really to avoid teaching this, because there is almost, it's like you're administering a standardized test. You can literally read through what is the appropriate script for and sort of accompanying dialogue for any one of these lessons. So if I open up the PDF, I should have done that earlier. I also should learn how to type. So they're, sorry, it's a little hard to see. They're giving you the learning objectives that we just saw, the key vocabulary. It's all standards aligned, which is really impressive to me too. The ISTE standards, the American Association of School Librarians standards, CASEL, and then Common Core. And then as you work your way down here, literally here is the script, right? ask, can you remember a time when you shared a secret or something really personal with someone else? Like, so as I said, and they tell you when to advance the slides, it reminds me of the film strips when we were kids, beep. But it's that granular in the advice. And for those of you for whom this is not, familiar territory, fear not. They have really done all the work for you in service of getting these conversations started. They don't want anyone to have the excuse or the fallback position of, well, I don't know how to do this, or this is too unfamiliar to me, I'm not sure how to introduce it. They are going to give you exactly what you need. And then your instincts as a teacher will kick in for how long a lesson should take, how much to stick with a discussion. I've used the Teen Voices video, shown it, and had 45, 50 minutes of solid, meaningful, thoughtful conversation with no prompting, no other activities, because they're so well done and they just do such a nice job of raising the issues in a way that is accessible to kids and makes it possible for them to really thoughtfully engage. Then again, we see the warm-up, the analysis. This one's called enacting, and they do it from the perspective of real-world scenarios and people's reactions to them, or what would you do if, or they'll show you what happened in real life and then ask you, they do some really nice job saying, like, here's what appeared on social media, what do you think actually happened? And then they tell you what happened. So they give you the opportunity to make the distinction between what's presented and what's true, and then how to do the work of merging those and use that process as a model for your own decisions about what you share. Is this accurate? Is it going to provide the kind of point of view or the impression that I want to people who see it? And going back to our initial questions, who is going to see it? What is the audience? How are they going to take it? What's the context for that? They also give you teacher versions of things that are for the kids. So the handout will give you what you're literally handing to kids, whether virtually or on paper. And then they give you an annotated version with the questions and sort of the reflections and the why behind, that expands on, and really it's a cheat sheet, like a really well done cheat sheet for the activity that's contained in the handout. And they do that in many of the lessons. So I hope that tour is helpful. I really encourage you to dig in, as I said, and find some of the other places where Common Sense's resources might be helpful to you. At any point, I hope you'll reach out to me or the other ambassadors. All of our emails are our first name dot last name. So in my case, it's jonathan.werner@maine.gov. We're happy to come visit. We're happy to visit virtually to talk with you, with a group, with your entire faculty. And we love working with students as well. So of course, as teachers, don't hesitate to have us come into your classrooms and sort of help jumpstart these conversations if you think that would be useful. Appreciate your time and your empathy for me standing up on my high horse. No, what's it called? My soapbox. Hopefully I wasn't on my high horse, but from my soapbox. And I hope that comes across to you, as I said, as my passion for this and my renewed reminder that to fail to have these conversations and to fail to teach kids the skills they need to communicate and to enter relationships online is an enormous disservice to them, and one we are all really guilty of. I don't think it's an overstatement to say leaving them to the wolves. And we've seen such awful outcomes as a result of that, that it is really a shared responsibility. And I feel like a mission-driven passion to make sure as much of this conversation is happening as often as possible in as many places as possible. So thanks again. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you next week for the final 6th episode of Common Sense Education's resources. And then, as I said, we'll turn to new media after April break.